All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Living the Dream podcast. Today on the show, we have Jeff Nischwitz, the snow globe shaker, and we're going to get into a little bit more about what that means exactly. So, Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Timothy. Excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Love running the podcast, and I'm happy to have you on. And so we like to jump right in. So if you could just start by telling us a little bit more about yourself and some of the things that you like to do for fun, that would be great.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm an oddball when it comes to fun. I like being outside. I moved to Florida a couple of years ago, so I get to be outside more. So I like things like bike riding and kayaking. I became a student of history later in my life. So I love going, I love reading, and I read a lot of history and personal development, leadership, all those kinds of things. I love traveling. Travel is probably my big thing. Pre-COVID, for about the 4 years prior to COVID, I did a ton of traveling, and you talk about living the dream. I feel like I've started to create it because I'm a speaker, so a lot of times I travel for speaking, and I just add time on. So I'll go somewhere, and if I haven't been there before, I really like it. I'll say, well, instead of going for a day and a half, I'll go for 4 days and explore. And part of that travel is, and this is, I guess, one of my coolest experiences. About 8 years ago, my dad and I, who's still living, started doing a trip together every year. And unfortunately, COVID interrupted that. But we would go visit for the first 6 or 7 years Civil War battlefields because we both had interest in history. And then we just started going places. We took a long train trip out west and drove all over the Montanas and Dakotas. And I would say the thing that lights me up the most is travel. And this is kind of the oddball thing. What I think is really fun is hanging out with people and talking about stuff, like real stuff, like just, it doesn't have to be serious stuff. My tolerance for casual conversation is pretty low, like a few minutes of it. But if I get together with some friends and have a glass of wine or a bourbon and maybe smoke a cigar and just talk about whatever comes up, that is like fun to me. It fills my heart to do that. So that's some of the things that are filling my life.
I love that. I love that. What type of real stuff? Like, what type of things do you go outside of casual conversation to talk about?
Everything. It's kind of like we talk. In fact, often I hang out with people that we talk about all the things we're not supposed to talk about. Like what's important to someone. It's not like we sit down and say, let's figure out what's the topic of the day. It's more like, hey, did you see this? What do you think about that? And a lot of times we disagree. I would say this sometimes. Some of the real topics that I really love talking about is put it in the bucket of personal work. Like what, me sharing, hey, I just recently became aware of this about myself, in terms of like maybe a trigger I have. It's kind of, and I'll tell you, a lot of times if people would hear some of these conversations, I think they would say, oh, you're not supposed to talk about that. But the people are genuinely looking to learn. And usually what happens is I'm just really naturally curious. So I just start asking questions, and all of a sudden there's this conversation happening. But it started with curiosity. There was no agenda. There was no, and it wasn't, it's not like I need to know what you think about this. It's, I'm curious what you think about this. And then I think that's more opening and people are more willing to share because it's not about me trying to figure you out. I just am curious.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that. Well, tell us a little bit more about Snow Globe leadership and your company and your speaking practices.
Yeah, well, the snow globe idea came to me 4 or 5 years ago. I was speaking at a conference. I got to tell you, I don't even know if I owned a snow globe at the time, which is pretty weird. I was literally in the middle of my speech, and this idea or this metaphor of snow globes hit me. And I started thinking about how snow globes are all similar. Snow globes are, they're nice to look at. That's what they're designed to be, but that's not really their purpose. They are designed to look nice. They have a nice picture inside of them or a scene, but they're designed to be shaken up. And I thought, do we really shake up our snow globes? And I started asking people, and they said, no, I never shake my snow globe. It just sits on the shelf. And so I started thinking about how, in order to change things, we have to be willing to shake things up, starting with ourselves. And we have to not only shake things up, because this metaphor, like it was like someone gifted it. It's like God gifted it to me or something, because every time I stand in front of a crowd and I shake a snow globe, and I'll say, so what happened as soon as I stopped shaking? They all go, it's settled. I go, that's the point. We shake things up in our lives, but we don't really change things. We don't change our perspective. We don't change our thinking. We don't change our action, and everything goes back to the way it was. So whether it's your personal life, your relationship life, or your business life, you disrupt, but you really just shook. Disruption is about fundamentally changing things. And that's been the mantra. So whether I'm, working with a coaching client or speaking to an audience, or my new book's coming out actually tomorrow night, which is pretty cool. It's about a reminder that you've got to constantly shake things up. And the last thing I'll share, because it's kind of a new thought that hit me this summer, that great discomfort always precedes great outcomes.
I
That
love
you
that.
don't get great outcomes without discomfort. That's just the deal. And I'm pretty willing to be uncomfortable, including in those conversations. Like sometimes they're uncomfortable, but they're still the conversations that need to happen. And I kind of do the same thing with my clients. I'll say this, I chuckle because the greatest compliment I get as a coach is when my clients swear at me. And they usually swear at me after I ask them a question, before they even answer it, because it was something that they weren't, maybe they didn't know. They probably didn't know, and some level didn't want to see and didn't want to know. And so they'll usually swear at me, and I'll just sort of smile and they'll say, yeah, I know. Huh. They'll sort of, huh. I didn't know that's how I saw that. I didn't know that's what I believed. I didn't know that was my obstacle. So I like getting swore at by my clients. I'm an odd duck.
Well, that means you're getting to the good stuff.
Getting the
Challenge.
good stuff.
Yeah, I love
That's why I'm a snow globe shaker. I help people shake their snow globes, and sometimes I shake it for them with a question or two.
it. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I love that. Tell us a little bit more about your motivation in this, just snow globe leadership and leading people and shaking things up in your life and other people's.
Um, I went a few years ago. This sounds very businessy, but it was very raw. I went through I actually created a brand. I started thinking about what am I all about? And I engaged somebody I knew, and they asked a lot of great questions. And I remember a conversation. I was sitting on her couch in her office, and she was kind of grilling me with the why question. Why do you do what you do? And she didn't accept any of my answers. And I was kind of ticked off, but I get it, because I think when we ask why questions, usually the first 4 or 5 answers aren't really the truth. They're the head talk. And then I got to this point in her questions that became very emotional. I could feel like the emotions. I was tearing up. And what I said to her is, I said, because the why, because of what I do, is this is why I exist. Like I might as well not even have breath in me if I'm not doing this. And what drives me is I look around and I tend, one of my gifts is I see the best in people, not Pollyannish best. I see that like the brilliance in them. I see the gold in them that most people can't see. We're so hard on ourselves. I'm so hard on myself. So the idea that I could help people see the best of themselves, see how much they have to contribute, see how they matter, so they can really, frankly, love themselves. And then do that to the people around them. Because I'll tell you, Timothy, I look around and I'm not hesitant to say this. I don't see much leadership anywhere. I see a lot of people running things, but leadership to me is about your people. And sadly, a question I often ask, like at a workshop or something, is I'll say to people, take a moment and pull out a piece of paper and write down the names of all the great leaders that you've worked with or interact with. That doesn't take very long. They don't have any. They have a lot of people that are maybe decent bosses, but that's not the same thing. They say, well, this guy or woman, they're growing this business, but I don't know that they're a great leader. They just know how to grow things. And there's a difference because leadership's about our people. And you look at a world, especially the United States, that's the issues we have are mental health issues, our relationship issues, our culture issues, our trust issues at work. I call it the gap. We've got this huge leadership gap, and I've decided I'm not going to let it be. I'm not okay letting it be. So I'm going to speak up. I'm going to ask the hard questions. I'm going to challenge people with the goal of, and this is where it's sometimes weird when I say it, to make the world a better place. But like starting in the interactions every day between people. So it's not a grand plan. It's a grand hope that my little ripple will turn into a big ripple and people's lives and relationships will be transformed. And when that happens, their businesses will grow. I mean, that's the thing. The business growth is the outcome of getting your people stuff right. Not let's grow our business and everybody will be happy because we made money.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that. And so that's kind of a great segue into the dreams and goals section of the podcast. Is that your overall vision? You know, making people's lives better by focusing on the interactions between leaders and their people?
Yeah, I would say that's my yeah, that's my kind of it's funny when I call it the business dream because my life is so integrated. That's my professional dream, to transform large numbers of people in how they lead people. Because if they do it the way I talk about it, they're going to be more curious. They're going to be more present. They're actually going to listen. They're going to be more empathetic. And if you look at that and you say, what would happen if we had tens of thousands of people who were more present, more curious, better listeners, and more empathetic? That's a world changer. And I think, I mentioned, I say professional because from a personal perspective, I'm really blessed. I get to live, my life is about my mission. Like they're not separate. And as at the beginning of the conversation, there's things I love to do, like travel. So, you know, from that standpoint, it's about creating this impact while creating time for the things I love to do. Because I still would love more freedom of time, not. And it's funny when people say, well, when will you be done with this impact piece? I said, never. That'll happen till my last breath. It just might look different. So the dream for me is to um, continue to create ways that I can have my impact and have the freedom of time, which means, some of that's business stuff about how I should run my business. Some of that's about investing. Um, you know, One of my dreams is to get involved in other businesses in addition to my business as an owner. So I'm creating um, growth opportunities that aren't dependent on my hours, but on my impact.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like being an angel investor.
A little bit of that. Some of it is, some of the conversations I've had more recently are partnering with clients so that I'm not a consultant or a coach. I'm a partner with them in the business. So help them. I mean, what I do is I help people grow themselves so they can grow their business, but be a part of the business instead of just collecting a fee, a little bit of real estate investing is in that mix too. Uh, You know, it's never
Fun to
too
say.
late to start. I'm just getting involved in that now in my life. I mean, I think I've written about this and talked about it. My dad gave me a great work ethic. He also passed down his workaholicism.
Mm,
So a lot of my life's journey has been to navigate that workaholicism, because I can outwork anybody, but learning that that's not how I add the most value has been a journey. It has been a journey, and
yeah,
I still work on it every day. Remind myself that, to take time and to create time by doing things differently and by being innovative in how I do business and how I create value for others and therefore for myself.
yeah, yeah, for sure. No, I love that. I love that. And it's easy when you care about something to really get into the workaholic mode because it gives you energy, and you could do it all day. But there are also other things in your life that are good that give you energy, like rest, like family time, like recreational time and stuff that you need to make sure you do. So,
Yes, I sometimes call that the big lie. The big lie that people will say, well, I love what I do, so it's okay that I'm working 8 hours a week. I don't buy that, because if you think of what does it mean to be really healthy, sound mind, body, and spirit, that does not include working all the time. And I can do that. And I told myself the same lie. I told myself that lie back in my prior career when I was a lawyer and I worked all the time. Told myself I was doing it because I loved it. Turns out I didn't. Told myself I was doing it because I was growing a business, which I was. And I paid a high cost of time away from my family. I paid a very high cost of missing out on a lot of my kids' life because I bought the lie. And we can have it all, but we have it all by choosing it all as opposed to trying to do it all. If that makes sense.
it does. It does make sense. It's a simple thing, but a really hard thing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
It is.
absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit more about taking us back to when like the snow globe leadership first started happening. Maybe your transition from lawyer to really owning your own company, which is the Nischwitz group, right?
Yeah. Well, that was quite the journey, boy. I learned so many lessons in that, and I'll try and be brief, but hit some of the highlights. I I decided to become a lawyer when I was like 15 years old, which is crazy because no lawyers in the family, no close friends. The main reason I became a lawyer is my mom, who regularly said to me, you should be a lawyer because you love to argue and you're really good at it. I thought later in life, I thought, well, that's pretty weird because all teenagers love to argue. Maybe they're not all good at it, but I mean, I was just an obnoxious teenager and wanted to argue about everything. That is why I became a lawyer, and I became a lawyer, and I laid out my plan, and my dream at the time, well, let's call it a goals kind of dream, was I want to be a partner in a corporate law firm. And that happened right on track. Everything I set my mind to, I achieved. I got good, went to college, got into a good law school, got the internship, the offer, worked hard, I mean, killer hours. And, I think it was 8 years in. So age 33, I achieved my life's goal. And then I went, now what? Because I mean, that was it. I had said, that's my life goal and I did it. Now what? Then I started to say, well, is this my future? And I realized that I wanted to be more of a leader in the firm, in the law firm. And I looked around at who was leading, and there were, they ran by committee. And I looked at that committee and said, they're not going to let me have a seat at the table, because I was a troublemaker. I was a snow globe shaker. Even then, I didn't know the word then. I was told regularly I asked too many questions, like about why we do things and how we do it. Um, and I cared about the people more than the firm did. And so I said, well, if I want to have a seat at the table, I got to create my own table. So I went and started my own law firm and did that for well, big firm 10 years, did that for 7 years and had it figured out. My first book is about how to build a law firm like a business. And I figured it out. I beat the system. I got to the point that I was making money running the firm, doing it. I was doing it all, but I wasn't killing myself. And my friends were like, how do you do this? How do you not work weekends? Because I didn't work weekends. How do you not work all hours? I just didn't. I beat the system. And then I figured out that I wasn't happy. And I was like, why am I not happy? I just achieved my goal again. And I realized that I didn't like practicing law. I just was really good at it. And so the two big lessons that came to me from that, which I think are important for everybody, is you can be amazing at something and it's not the right thing. I'm just really good at a lot of things. I was really good at, I was a good lawyer and I was a good lawyer at building a law firm, but I didn't like being a lawyer and I couldn't figure out how to be a lawyer and not practice law. So I quit. I quit. And so the one lesson was that if you had asked me before I decided to leave the practice, how I felt about practicing law, I would have said, it's okay, but it's not great. And I went, great. I would have said, it's okay. And as soon as I decided to quit, I realized I hated it. So one lesson I would share with everybody is if you think something's okay, it's probably not even true, because the feeling that it's okay is the protection mechanism. So you don't have to change. You tell yourself it's okay, but it's not. And I realized I hated it. So I left. I went and started a new business, turned into an epic failure. I got schooled. I got humbled. Um, and came back and went to work started working for some other folks, started doing business development and sales, was really good at that. Didn't feel fulfilled, wanted to have my own business, didn't know what it was. And that's when I wrote my book for lawyers. And I wrote the book because I wanted to write a book. I had no plan. I had no business. I wasn't a consultant. I just said, I want to write a book. I always wanted to write a book. So I wrote a book. At least one guy read it. And he called me one day from West Virginia and said, I read your book. I think it's awesome. Do you do coaching? And I gave the right answer. Yes, I do. And we had several discussions that went mostly like, well, how much does it cost? Well, it depends. What are you looking for? Well, how many people? That depends. How many are you looking to have coached? 3 weeks later, I had a coaching gig kind of on the side. I did that and I said, this is awesome. I think this is my thing. And I told myself, I'll wrap up with this. And I told myself, I can't do this yet. I'm still trying to figure out my failed business. I need a job. I mean, how many people say that today? I need a job. Just not now's not the right time. I'm waiting for the right time. And the universe told me what time it was, because about 4 or 5 months later, I had a meeting scheduled with my boss, who was also a friend, and he walked into the room. It was a regular meeting. We met every Monday. He walked in the room with another partner, and he walked in the room, and I thought, they're letting me go before they even said anything. And they, gave me this long story, very genuinely, about the economy. It was during the Great Recession, that we ran out of runway, man, and we feel horrible about this. And I'm inside going, well, now's the time. And
Yep.
so I pretended not to be happy. I wasn't mad. I wasn't angry. I remember very much putting on this act of, no, it's okay. I understand. We're all disappointed, but we'll be okay and we'll stay friends. And they walked out of the room and I kind of went, okay, now's the time. And
Awesome.
6 weeks later, so I told some guy that what had happened. I'm sorry, I said I'd close. I'm going to close with this though, because I always love sharing this story. People tend to resonate with it. I go to a networking event for job seekers, not because I was looking for a job, but I had spoken to their group about how to network for a job, applying business development skills to a job search. This guy comes up to me and goes, how you doing? I go, I'm doing awesome. And he said, wow, not a lot of people here are awesome. I said, I know, it's depressing here. All I hear people here talking about is I can't get a job. There's no jobs. It's pretty depressing. And he said, well, Jeff, with all due respect, you have a job. I said, no, I don't. He says, what do you mean? I go, I lost my job like 6 weeks ago. What are you doing? I started my own business, coaching business. Well, you have clients? Oh, no, I have no clients. Well, you must have had like some good financial base. I said, oh, no, no, I'm still recovering from that other business. I got divorced. I'm paying for 2 households. This is the worst time in my entire life financially to start a business. And he said, well, he said, don't you have any prospects? I said, well, I'm working on it. But I said, the sales funnel, what a sales funnel is? He goes, yeah. I go, I have a funnel drawn on my wall, but there's nobody in it yet. And he looked at me and he said, how are you awesome then? And I said, I woke up and decided to be awesome. And what I realized is it's always the right time for the right thing. And I started hustling that February of 2009, and I'm still in that hustle because I'm driven by something beyond, far beyond comfort, far beyond a paycheck. Uh, there's meaning in my life. And even on my worst business day, it's a great day.
I love that. I love that. It's always the right time for the right thing.
Isn't that a good one?
That is a good one. Awesome. Awesome. Well, now we're going to ask you about kind of next steps for your business in the Nischwitz group. So if there was one or two people that you could meet that could help you take those next steps for your company and your speaking practices, who would that person be and how would they do it? It could be a type of person or a specific name.
Yeah. Mine are more a type of person. The type of person is, I love meeting people who are typically business owners. So I like meeting business owners who they're growing. They're either growing their business or they want to grow their business, but typically they're struggling. They're not just struggling in their business, something's off. Maybe the business is killing it, but it's killing them. Maybe they're in that thing of, oh, I don't know I don't know what's next for my business, or I know what's next for my business, but I don't feel like I'm being the husband or partner that I want to be. I don't feel like I'm being the father or mother I want to be. Something's off, because my work is really at that intersection of business and life. When people say, are you a business coach or a life coach? I always say, if you can tell me the difference, I'll answer your question. And they just go, oh, I get your point. Like, that's it, that the conversation's done. But I would say this, what I found in my life, Timothy, because it helps me grow my business, but it also fills up my life and enriches my life, is I love meeting people and connecting with people who are doing interesting things, interesting people doing interesting things. That's been my mantra for about 7 years. When people say, who do you want to meet? I said, I want to meet interesting people doing interesting things. And lo and behold, what do? I meet really interesting people doing interesting things who have their own, typically are mission driven. Um, so that, that's the thing. Business owners who really want to grow themselves and grow their life, and their business will grow in that. The other thing I'm going to take the opportunity to share, Timothy, because it's been on my heart the last month or so. I was asked to get involved in starting a nonprofit earlier this year by a woman I met last fall who's just amazing. Her name is Yunis Nuna, and Yunis is from Kenya. She's a rape survivor, and her story is horrific and incredible. And she came to the United States because she's been threatened in Kenya because she's speaking out. And she started a nonprofit to help sexual violence survivors and to give them a safe place. And we're getting this thing started. And so when you look at people, um, I'd love to meet some people who have a heart for women. Some of it's boys too, but people who are sexual violence survivors or in those high risk places. Because I know we're just one or two relationships away from getting things done and really having an impact in Kenya. Um, so yeah, that would make my heart really smile to have some conversations with people who are drawn to that conversation, to that type of impact. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
called Wounded Healers International. Um, Nuna's just incredible. Talk about somebody on mission.
What'd you say her
She's
name was? Nuna or Yuna?
Eunice. Her first name is Eunice. Her last name is Nuna, Nuna. The organization's called Wounded Healers International. Yeah, she was, Nuna's story was she was raped at a young age, got pregnant, ended up having a child, disowned by her family, homeless, still got caught, went to college. Um, the reason she had to leave Kenya is the person who raped her was a policeman, someone who she asked for help from. And that policeman is now a government official. So he doesn't like her speaking out. So he threatened, she started to get threats. So she came to the United States to be safe. But the mission is happening in Kenya. She's here, started this group here with my help to start raising funds to just, create safe houses and things like that. Um, so yeah, that is a passion of mine. In terms of a dream is being able to help Nuna keep more young women safe in Kenya. That's a dream too.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. I love that. Thanks for sharing. I'm glad we
Yeah,
didn't
you're
get off the
welcome.
podcast without you sharing that.
Yeah, right on. Yeah.
Awesome. So what is the most what are the most important one or two things that everyday people can do to both help you with Wounded Healers International and your coaching and consulting company?
Uh, well, from the coaching and consulting business, the main thing is listen. Just listen to what people are saying, because people will say, I'm not sure who you need to meet. And I said, well, they're telling you, you just may not hear them. Typically, like I said, it's a business owner. More often than not, and I'm just claiming this, most of the time it's men, just because I've done so much work with men. I do work with a men's organization called the Mankind Project, all about helping men be better men. So when people hear men talk about how they're struggling in life, that's the person to talk to. Um, so it's just listening. The big thing is listen for people who are talking about their struggles. Whether it's a business struggle or a life struggle, usually it's both. And with wounded healers, I'll tell you, all I would ask is go to Wounded Healers. It's Wounded Healers like intl.org. Just go there, and all I would ask people to do is read a little and watch a couple videos and then follow your heart. Um, and I guess the other piece I'd add is if people are part of organizations, that's one of the things that organization supports. We'd love to talk to some companies and get them to partner with us, um, to help drive some of this impact. I mean, I'll tell you part of the story that just, this is the stuff that angers me to motivate me. So it's good anger. Is one of the issues in Kenya why young girls are basically selling their bodies to get feminine hygiene products and clean drinking water. So you've got teenage girls who will basically prostitute themselves to get $1 so they can get pads or tampons. They're not available to them. So one thing we're looking to do is partner with organizations that might be in those product lines to get donations of those products, because as strange as it seems, by providing drinking water or feminine hygiene products to these girls, it keeps them safe by having those. It's that simple. I mean, it's that simple. So you can imagine that you can change a life with a bottle with fresh drinking water. You can change a girl's life and keep her safe by providing her with feminine hygiene products. I never would imagine that. I
Yeah.
still can't. I hear it. I still can't imagine it, but that's the reality. So those are some ideas, Timothy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. Um, awesome. Awesome. Man, you hit at my heartstrings. Sorry. Threw me a little bit.
Good.
Um, Now we're gonna jump into our thriving three. And I just like to ask you questions about how you thrive in life and what you're doing to kind of
Mhm.
take care of yourself. So, what is your favorite book, movie, or podcast? Pick one.
Oh my God. Oh, a guy that reads, you're asking this of a guy that reads 40 or 50 books a year and loves movies and spends his walking time listening to podcasts. Um, I'm gonna go with the movie. And the movie is Shawshank Redemption.
Mm,
I think there is so, because to me, the message of Shawshank is relationships and hope. In fact, there's a line in there where Morgan Freeman says to Tim Robbins, because Tim Robbins is talking about hope, and Morgan says, "Don't go there. That's the worst. You can't have hope here." And Tim Robbins says, "No, that's the only thing that matters here." And I think that's true of life. It's not being Pollyannish, but hope. And their friendship is just beautiful. Um, you look at it, how often you look at a scene or a relationship and say, just look at how they loved on each other. Um, so to me, that movie's about relationships and hope. Yeah.
absolutely. I love that. I love that. And what's one way you like to take care of yourself?
I've simplified it. I do two things. We talked earlier about the workaholic. One thing I do is I set boundaries on my work. And I'm getting pretty good at it. I can turn off the work and just rest. But I just like to walk. I used to run, but it was pretty hard on my body. Walking is one of the best exercises. So I walk almost every day, just 2 or 3 miles. That's also when I'll listen to a book or a podcast. So I am a little bit of multitasking in it, but I look forward to it. It gets my body moving. And I would add to this because I think so many people miss this. Walk everywhere. Walk everywhere is something I do very intentionally. So when I go to the store, I don't look for the closest parking spot. I park in the furthest parking spot and I walk. Um, when I'm going, if I've got to go do something nearby, I go walk. I walk there instead of driving there. I have a mindset of just walk and take the stairs and not the escalator. Like that's true for me. Like in airports, I've been in airports a lot. I'm very conscious. I take the stairs, not the escalator. So I'm constantly reminding myself to move my body in just these little ways. And the other thing I'll add, because it fills my heart. I have this shopping cart thing. You ever notice how there's shopping carts everywhere in the parking lot?
Oh, yeah.
And they have people who go around and get them. I'm like, I look at that and I say, why'd you leave your shopping cart there? Why don't you just walk it back to the place where you put them?
Hmm.
I walk my shopping carts back. And if I'm walking into the store, I grab a cart and take it with me.
Ooh,
You
I like
almost
that.
never see me in a parking lot without a shopping cart, because to me it's just a little act of kindness and making it easier for someone else. And I'm walking. And I guess I think that's a bit of a, you say what makes take care of myself is, this is, I never realized how big a mission this is. I have this desire to just be kind and do kindnesses to people, even if they're small. I mean, I was thinking about, I'm in this business, I belong to this business club here in Tampa, and my interactions with the people that work there are, I hope they receive it this way, is like, I have a personal goal that I want to be the person there, the member there, that they go, he's respectful, he's kind, he's friendly, and he makes our job easier. Not that they make my life easier. I want to be the guy that people know as kind and respectful. No matter who you are, no matter what your job is, no matter where you are in life, that we're equal. We're different, but equals. And that's been a mantra in my life for a long time.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Awesome. What is one action step you can take right now to, take your consulting business to the next level, but also taking the nonprofit Wounded Healers International to that next level and finding those strategic partnerships?
Well, the one on Wounded Healers is very clear for me, because it's on my priorities for this week, is to schedule a couple of get to know the organization gatherings, one in person here in Tampa and one in, I'll do online, just to share some of the story, let Nuna share her story. There's a lot of people in my life who still don't know about this, so I'm starting in close. So schedule the little things would be schedule those two things, online and in-person events for wounded healers. For the business, that's a great question. The business would be to begin marketing, because I just created a new program where business owners come together and support each other, but also get coaching from me. Some people call them masterminds. Some people call them peer-to-peer networking groups. I've created the concept. I'm at launch stage. So basically light the fuse. It'd be light that fuse.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Awesome. Sounds good. Well, is there anything else you want to chat about before we sign off?
No, Timothy, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to talk about these things. Some of these things I don't talk about a lot, for not for different reasons. They're just only so much space. And I love your questions. They made me think. And I will close with this thought. And if people haven't seen it, go watch it. Do you know who Jimmy Valvano was?
I do not.
So Jimmy V, as he was known, was the head basketball coach at North Carolina State. Won a national championship, sort of the underdog in I think 1983. Very well-known coach, very popular. And sadly, Jimmy died at a very young age of cancer. And ESPN, the ESPYs, has an Arthur Ashe Courage Award. And I believe it was the first year they gave out that award. They gave it to Jimmy V, and he gave a speech at the ESPYs. It's only about 8 or 10 minutes. He was riddled with cancer at the time. I believe he died 3 weeks later. No one even knew if he would make it there. And if you watch him, he's getting up on stage, being helped up on stage. He's so weak, but he comes alive and he gives his talk. And he says that it's a very funny but motivational and inspirational talk. And he says there's three things that make a great day. You think, you laugh, and you cry. And he said, if you, every day that you do that, you think, you laugh, and you cry, that's a great day. And I feel like all three of those happened today, because I thought, because of your questions, I laughed, and I felt emotion talking about wounded healers. So great day. Thanks for letting me start this way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, same here, man. Same here. I appreciate it. Well, awesome. If you guys are listening to this podcast and you liked what Jeff had to say, you vibed with his mission, either in the Nischwitz group or in Wounded Healers, make sure to reach out to him, contact him, and go to the website for Wounded Healers, which is woundedhealersintl.org.
Yes, Wounded Healers INTL. If you put in Wounded Healers International, it will come up. There are some other organization called Wounded Healers that do some different things, but Wounded Healers International, you will find it.
Awesome. Sounds good. Be on the lookout for that. All of that will be in the show notes. Finally, send this podcast to somebody you know needs to hear the message, and just make sure you can spread it. And last but not least, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show. Guys, thank you for listening. We're out.